All right, so I'm ready to go, man. I got a Pellegrino in my right hand, and just don't worry about my left hand. Pellegrino.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Metacast podcast. That's a podcast that explores itself, explores ourselves, and explores the self in general. My name is Ty, and I'm going to be your host.
And I'm your co-host with his phone turned off, Distance.
Is your phone actually turned off?
No.
Oh, okay. God. And you tricked me. You really had me there. I thought we changed something. And tonight is the Metacast movie show about the social dilemma. All right. Where are my notes? Hold on. Dude, I'm gonna get this one day. I keep pulling up my notes on the same monitor that then I play the trailer on, and every single week it gets me. I start the trailer and then immediately I'm like, oh shit, where are my notes? Oh yeah, they're behind the trailer. That makes sense. All right.
We'll just tell you that next time. Can we get it there behind the trailer in chat, please?
Exactly. Yeah, just remind me next time. The Social Dilemma is a 2020 docudrama. It's directed by Jeff Orlowski, and it's written by Davis Coombe, Vicky Curtis, and Jeff Orlowski.
It stars Tristan Harris, Ozza Raskin, Justin Rosenstein, or is it Stein? Whatever.
It's Tristan Harris. They actually go over that movie.
Oh, wait, seriously?
Yeah, there's one scene where they say that in the movie, but yeah, I'm just...
Oh, and Shoshana Zuboff. The tomato meter rating is 87% with an audience score of 84%. Pretty close.
It is. And the Social Dilemma takes a look at how social media affects the human brain and consequently all of society. The film includes many interviews with professionals that were formerly in many of the top tech companies responsible for creating many of the platforms that so many of our lives revolve around. This movie, so it's weird to call this a movie because it's more of a documentary. It is a docudrama where there is, as shown in the trailer that you're seeing right here, there are acted out parts. But the majority of the movie is, the talking head style interviews with, as I was talking about, people that were leaders in these companies. And it is very interesting and very thought provoking. And I am both intrigued by it and also like kind of terrified by the possible consequences of what we're doing to ourselves, I guess. So as far as trying to give this a verdict, should you watch this, I think this is the most resounding yes I could give anything yet, because this is more than just a movie that like, oh, I feel like you should watch this because you enjoy it, or even a movie that I've given a yes to that's like, oh, I think you should watch this because it's thought provoking. This to me is more I think you should watch this because it's possible that our society is headed in a very dangerous direction, and this can possibly bring light to that fact, I guess. So again, yeah. So I have to give this a yes. Where do you fall on this one?
Yeah. For this one, it's a movie that I think is an important thing to watch. On a side note, really, particularly if you have children, I think this is a film that you should probably check out. And I think that it's something that affects just about everybody today. I will say that one problem I have is understanding that the film has a specific subject matter. It does not have a lot of nuance to a lot of the points that they make for problems that are caused by social networking. So it's, like, listen to it and recognize that they're making points, and this is related to social media, but there's also other contributing factors to some of the things that they're talking about, not all of it. But yeah, I mean, despite like that tiny little quirk that I'm not like about, for this one, I am gonna give it yes. I think it's a super important thing for everybody to at least be aware of to some degree, and even if you don't really listen and you just hear it, better to have it in your brain somewhere than not. So yes, on this one for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Even if it's not Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. Even if you don't want to look at this movie and take it as like doctrine or anything and say that like, oh, I need to change something, at least just being aware of the possibilities of the things they're talking about, I think is very important for everyone. So what did you go into this expecting? I know that I do you often watch documentaries, I guess? Is that something you do very often?
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I think that's the only thing I watched on Netflix.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So in other words, I was a vegan for a month at a time on several occasions.
Yep.
But yeah, for a little while, that's about the only thing I watched on there, and it's all that it would suggest to me. The algorithm would suggest.
Exactly. Yeah. It is okay. So it is really interesting the way that this movie gets into that there's so I think a lot of people assume that there's almost like, even the way you said that, like there's almost like some malicious intent behind like some algorithm, that it's like that it wants to brainwash you in a certain way. And it's interesting that this movie kind of introduces the idea that it's like, well, no, the whole idea is to keep you engaged, and it just knows to give you the type of content that is going to keep you sitting there clicking and watching the next recommended video or whatever. And it just so happens that tends to align with content that is either like misleading or things like that. But it's not that it was designed from the top down to say like, oh, let's misinform people.
Yeah, it's a completely amoral process. Like this was created with a goal, and it just serves that goal. However it has to get to it, which, recognizing this is a machine, it's a kind of a sociopathic trait that the end justifies the means.
Yeah.
So but once again, I mean, they even say in the movie that it was not our intent to design this thing to do what it's done. Like, we don't want to have like a legion of like, like flat earthers getting in fights with like far leftists because they think that they're threatening their survival. That's not what they intended. It's just, this is the goal, let's make this thing do this, and from what I understand, it does it quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got many YouTube rabbit holes, anecdotally speaking, which we all know is the best evidence, right? Anecdotally speaking, to be in agreement with that. It is really, really damn good.
Yeah. Well, even just the same algorithms are what shows you your advertisements and things like that, and that all works very well. The advertisements you see are curtailed to you, and very often kind of what you're looking for.
And there is something that, because we talked about this before, that we were going to end up touching on like last year's theme, like a lot, like the way that this was going to be a lot like that. So let's go ahead and define algorithm, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what that means. The definition of algorithm on dictionary.com: algorithm is a noun, a process or set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations, especially by a computer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's just a set of rules, y'all. If you have a flow chart made in Visio at work that tells you how a process works, that's an algorithm.
I liked
it's a set of rules that you follow.
Exactly. Yeah, I liked the not exactly definition, but what one of the ladies in the movie said, that algorithms are opinions embedded in code. Because it is that, like, there is a designer that is, looking for a specific output, like we talked about. It's like it doesn't have to be moral, like but it is just looking for some specific output, and you're designing this algorithm to give you that.
Yeah, and one thing that drives me up the wall is the phrase "these days," and
we use that a lot these days.
And this will bring us to the end.
Hey.
I'm kidding. There is no end until we end. There is no end to this. But the one thing that I kind of wanted to bring up from the very beginning is Edward Bernays. And I thought about him in the midst of watching this movie. Edward Bernays is the kind of like they call him, I guess, the father of public relations.
Okay.
He's the person that kind of invented modern advertising, and the goal of it was almost like it's like propaganda for a brand.
Okay.
It was a way to actually manipulate people or make them feel a certain way to purchase a product. Like, have you heard this? And I don't know. I think this might just be an urban legend, but have you? By the way, the dude actually died at 103. Edward Bernays lived.
He was 103.
103.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, he died in 1995.
He had a pretty awesome mustache in most pictures, though. I'm definitely digging it.
I think he either got rid of it later or it was so gray you couldn't see it in photos anymore. But he's that okay. There's a story that I've heard that initially the cake mix that you could buy was, at the time, it was marketed to women because it was a point where women were mainly homemakers in the U.S. So it was like 1950s ish. That eggs weren't actually necessary to go into the recipe, but I'm assuming Betty Crocker and companies like that, they tried to play this game where, and like I said, take this all with a grain of salt because it's just a thing that people say and I don't know if it's true.
Okay.
That there's this idea that if you put eggs in there as an ingredient, and this is somewhat sexist, by the way, that the women, the homemakers that were purchasing these products would associate that with fertility. And that subconsciously putting an egg would influence them to be more likely to purchase the product. And whether or not that's bullshit, I don't know. But it's just a thing that people say, and it's really stupid.
I just picture like a scene out of Mad Men, like a boardroom of just white men in the 50s having this conversation of like, oh, now you see, we'll give an egg. And that'll make them think of their own eggs, and it'll trick their little women brains into buying more cake mix.
And then, a woman walks in to tell somebody about a meeting, and one of the men calls her honey or something.
Yeah.
And then Don Draper's sitting on the couch all splayed out with his scotch, and he's like, "Get me in a room." Yeah. We just wrote the scene. But
what was it? Where were we going with the advertising and is it the manipulation? I
was going with it, or did you cut out there? Are you still on there?
You cut out for a second too, but yeah, but we both just came back. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, where I was going was that the idea of manipulating people or trying to change their opinions is an old idea. It's been around for over 50 years now.
No, I think it's honestly probably the oldest idea. Yeah, I think that is what people have tried to do from the beginning of time, is just manipulate others.
Yeah, and Bernays is kind of the person that's credited with it because he sort of created a system, like an official rule book for how to make this work.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think he did some propaganda for one of the wars too. I can't remember which one. And I think he did some. I
guess he was long enough. He was alive long enough. That could have been any of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he did the entire PR campaign for the Civil War. Most people don't know, but yeah, he was doing. It's a really successful marketing campaign. Yeah,
the War of 1812.
Yeah,
all of it. What year was the War of 1812 in?
Let me Google that.
Was it 73? It was 73, right? 1973.
Well, it ended in 1815. Yeah, 1815 would be the.
Okay, 1815 then. Yeah, the War of 1812 was in 1815. They go by when the war ended.
Everybody knows normally. That, right? Yes,
this is science, and you heard it here first. But the point I was getting to was that, and I mean, even then, newspapers were ways. I'm sure there were advertisements, but Bernays is credited with being the father of it, so to speak, because he's one of the first people to actually come up with a system. And I'm fairly certain he wrote a couple of books about it. But it's just the idea of manipulating people's opinions on a broad scale is not a new thing.
Yeah.
And you even hear, I think that someone made the remark that this is just a way to make it easier.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I don't know if it was Congress or where Tristan was, where a few politicians were asking questions, but one of them was kind of almost asking, we've heard the same kind of arguments against the printing press and against newspapers and against, television. Like what makes this different than just another? And it's it is interesting because, we constantly run up against that idea of like everything feels like the first time we've run into this problem, and it feels like a big deal, when in reality maybe it's just, you know, the first time our generation has seen this, and many generations have already dealt with this, and humanity has done this. However, they do bring up a lot that is very different about this particular, the way that this technology interfaces with us, that it is not Tristan even goes into that area where he's talking about the difference between like a tool, and how a tool is kind of passive and it's sitting there waiting for you to do something, versus the algorithms and the systems, the programs that we have running are actually demanding of us and wanting something of us, rather than just being sitting there passive waiting for us.
Yeah, and when he makes that point, it is it's I mean, hats off, because that's a very, very clear and even though it seems obvious that you, like, when you hear it or when you repeat it, it's actually a really clever idea, like the way that he chose to express that, and it's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
That and mostly because we perceive the smartphone as a tool, or the computer as a tool.
Yeah.
And I think he's just making the distinction that not exactly. And
there's definitely times we use it as that, but that is not all of what it is. Yeah.
Right. And some of the stuff that kind of weirded me out was that there's a point where they mentioned like all of your activity, like how long you stop and look at a photo.
Oh yeah.
Like I realized that there was information being used, like tracking what individuals were doing, and making suggestions of like what they thought that they would like and whatnot. But I didn't realize it was so exact as to how long you stop on something. So I'm actually kind of sitting here thinking to myself about a few thumbnails on a couple videos on YouTube where I've been like, "Ooh, I can't believe they caught me stopping and looking at that."
Yeah, like the one that you linked me. It was yesterday. Yeah, that's like yeah. This one got him for 36 seconds. Let's give him more of that.
That's weird. Yeah, this explains a lot now, because I looked at my feed today.
Which, by the way, I do like, I don't want to interrupt, but I do have to say I love the way they portrayed the algorithms with the guy. I don't know the actor's name in this, but I thought that was a great way of
Mad Men, which we've already mentioned.
Yes, but I forget his name. But like that portrayal is just great. It makes it very relatable. It makes this whole system make sense in a way that just like to the human mind, I guess. Yeah.
And it's cool because the creators realized that was the best way to explain it by some. Yeah. Well, I say this as an IT person, some nerd sitting in a chair explaining it to you, most people aren't going to get.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like the way that they decided to do it, and actually I'm wondering now because Vincent Kartheiser is the actor's name.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
He played Pete Campbell on Mad Men, which I instantly recognized him. And I, you know what? I'm the casting guy on every episode. I talk about casting. Perfect cast.
Yeah, he was great for that. Yeah.
And the dude from Santa Clarita Diet that plays Ben. I forget his name.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Also perfect cast. Well done. Hats off to the drama part of the docudrama.
Yes, which I do have to say, like, ignoring the documentary part for a second, that section was like not only acted well, but just the production value was done very well too. It had the like we've talked about before with certain movies where some of them are not able to make you feel, like this one was able to just like have scenes that were like emotionally charged, and yeah, very well done. Yeah.
Yeah, and also relatable as hell.
Yes.
Which we'll probably say a few more times in this episode. Relatable. One thing that I thought was a little kooky, I got over the tension music pretty fast. Because they, on the subject of manipulating people's feelings, that was used a few times too many, where it's a way to give the audience a more marked response, I guess.
Yeah.
To the concepts there, and not trying to take away from any of the seriousness of the situation. I think what they're talking about is serious as hell. And once again, that's why I made a point to, in the should you watch section, mention that parents should watch it, because it's very important, I think, to understand what this stuff is actually doing to your kids' brains. But you know, and I'm not saying that, like, you know, I just thought it was a little overdone, like the tension music and some of the like dialogue that they were doing.
Well,
'Cause
I
people
completely
felt-
agree, because it can be, when overused, it can almost take away from the seriousness.
Yeah, it was used enough that I like noticed it in. Actually, I noticed it pretty early in the film because this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My sixth bullet point in my notes,
Mm-hmm.
and I do these in order of like what I'm watching in the film.
Yeah. Yep.
And that there's, I know that there was, so I guess this would be a good time because you mentioned at one point in like our kind of discussion about this
Mhm.
that me being someone that really isn't on social media, because if you notice, the only thing I've mentioned is YouTube, and I
Yeah.
know that counts. I
Yeah.
recognize that it does. I was wondering, because I don't know what social media accounts do you actually have?
Well, and that is you want to kind of say, it is kind of the irony of us like talking about this film and in a positive light, and like being you wanting to reinforce the messages of it while doing that on social media platforms, basically to spread its message. But it's like you kind of have to use but no, to your question, I mean, I'm not very active on any social media, but like even for like whenever I tried to like when I first started streaming, try to like promote my stream and everything, I had to like kind of teach myself to use social media and like make myself post and be like, all right, like remember to do this and everything. Like even set reminders in my phone and everything, because that's not something that I very often use. But I mean, I have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, well, I guess like Reddit is, I would consider even social media. I have a Reddit account. I have a Twitter account, which is that one I use less than the others. That I almost never touch. But I guess it would be easier to say like what I don't have of the big things that I've heard of. I don't have a TikTok. That's one that I've never gotten into, never really understood. But I feel like I may just be too old for TikTok. That's one that is just like maybe flew a few years under my radar.
Interestingly enough, you're just old enough for TikTok. That it's really funny because I feel like the stereotype that we get comes from both sides, and maybe it was like, I don't think it was like that for any other arbitrarily determined and arbitrarily named generation.
Mm-hmm.
That I say something to my because like when the plague first started, I actually got a TikTok because admittedly everyone was doing it.
I forgot
Everyone was
about
doing
that.
it.
Yeah.
So like I had one and I watched some stuff. I even made a couple videos and I thought they were kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say to like my, like my nephew who was, I guess he was 13 at the time. He just turned 14.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, let me send you this TikTok. And it was like, fucking millennials. Like, I was like, oh my God. He's like, yeah, you millennials and TikTok. I'm like, really, bro? Come on.
Are kids now like too young for TikTok or too cool for TikTok? I thought TikTok was the young thing. Jesus.
I think it's weird because it's hit or miss. Like some younger people are like into the TikTok thing and others are not. And I think part of it depends on social circles. But like keep in mind, like my nephew goes to a private Catholic school that's an all boys school, so it's not really like the average public school experience.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
And sis, if you're watching, good choice on schools. He seems really happy there. We talked about it a little bit the other day.
I was wondering where that was going though when you started with like about TikTok. I was like, by the way, he goes to an all boy Catholic school and TikTok is banned there. I was like, oh, okay, well that makes sense.
I mean, that probably wouldn't be a bad thing, but yeah. And actually his birthday was just a week ago, so happy belated, dude, if you happen to be listening. But you better not, because we say the F word a lot.
The good F word, not the bad F word.
Yeah.
In 2020, there's two F words. There's one that's okay and one that's not okay. So.
Oh yeah, we say the one that's like.
Well, that's right. We say the F word, not the F slur. That's the difference.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we use the one that's conditionally good, not the one that's always bad.
Yeah, the one that the F word is the good one because it can be any form of speech. It is such a versatile word. It is just a good one.
It does all the things, and it makes the English language even more of a conundrum than it already was. It's true. But there's and the reason why I asked is like, I know that you're like not active on it, like you're not super crazy into it, but it's weird because I disabled pretty much everything 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
I never had a Twitter. I never had Instagram. I never had Snapchat. I had a Facebook, which actually, do you remember? I think I don't remember if it was Facebook or if it was MySpace, but you
God.
and a girl I was dating actually made me an account on one of those services.
I
But it
feel
was
like I
when you were
do
living,
remember that.
it's when you were
Yeah.
living off of Chapman. Um,
Yeah.
and like I don't remember. I
Yeah.
think
Was it MySpace or Facebook? I don't remember now.
because I had a. I'm trying to remember when I actually got a MySpace because I feel like I had a MySpace when we were in high school. I think it
Possibly.
was one or the other, but no. It was a MySpace.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, because I was like 18 or 19. Like we were pretty young. We just got out of school.
Was
Like,
it
'cause I
because
remember,
like you needed to be in someone's top 8 and you didn't
I
exist
think
there? And it was like, we
so.
have to like you need a profile because you're
Well,
supposed to be in my
yeah,
top 8, dude. Like,
because like that was, and I think at that time, like we were because I mean we're I would say we're really close now, but
Mhm.
like we kind of had like our period of like sort of talking to each other every now and then.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like that was like the first time that like I think we were really close at the time, and it was like this weird thing where it's like I'm your best friend and she's your girlfriend, so I think it was something like that. But I might be I might be like filling it into the frog DNA. That's what I call it. Like when you fill in gaps in memory with made up shit.
I like that. I'm also going to clip that completely out of context because just I mean, I'm your best friend and she's your girlfriend, so like that sentence out of context is just great.
Actually, it is. It's pretty damn hilarious. And you heard it here second or third or first, maybe. And that was weird because the Facebook I did because I actually felt pressured that like I needed to have one. And then I remember I remember when it was a faux pas or you actually were shamed for using Facebook on your phone with a group of people. I'd actually gotten it on. I'd purchased a smartphone. It was an iPhone 3GS.
Okay.
I was pretty late to the party. A lot of people had smartphones a few years before that, and I was actually on Facebook at a get together, and so I was like, "Are you Facebooking right now?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah. Wait, that's so crazy to think that now that's just like that would be super common. Well, I guess now you would just get made fun of because it's Facebook, not Instagram or a more accepted social media platform. But yeah.
So last year.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
are you
of
on
reasons.
Facebook? What are you, 40?
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Say hi to my mom on Facebook while you're there. Actually, hold on.
My grandma.
Do you tell other people to say hi to my mom? That's kind of like setting yourself up for your mom joke, right? I don't think you would ever be like, "Hey, bro, say hi to my mom." Oh, never mind.
I feel like I kind of want to do that now, just to see how creative people are with the impending mom joke. But it's funny because I'd like to say that I caught on to some kind of thing, that I was wise to some sort of I know what you're doing, but it was just some like intuitive thing I think I had, that I was just like, this isn't doing anything for me. I feel wrong about this. I'm tired of pretending that I'm friends with these people. I'm tired of simulating social interaction when I'm actually lonely.
Yeah.
And the cool thing that happened with it is that what happened is the people figured out if I was really their friend, and I figured out if people were really my friend, because now people have to put in an effort to be my friend.
Yeah.
You have to text and like call, stay in touch, do a podcast with me.
Yeah.
Like, there's stuff that you have to do, and that people get the same thing. There's a reciprocity. Words.
That is true. If you had a Facebook, we would not do a podcast. I would just poke you once a week on Facebook. I think that's still a feature. I think you can still poke someone. But that would be the extent of our friendship, rather than getting together to discuss anything. Yeah, like.
And I'd like a post about guns or video games every now and then that would be the extent of our friendship.
In the comment section, you would put you start typing my name, and then you hit enter, and then my name appears there in blue, and it lets me know that you tagged me in the comment section of that post. And then I open it and I chuckle at it too. And we don't actually have to have any sort of dialogue about the post or anything. You just literally just say like, "Hey, I saw this," and then I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I saw that too."
And then because I have a clear platform for all of my opinions, I post some outlandish political opinion, and then you respond to it, and then I respond back to you in all caps, and we waste 20 minutes of our lives not changing each other's minds about something that's actually more or less trivial. and then after that, we tell everybody that we're involved in politics.
That's and then Okay, and then afterwards I share a picture of my cat.
And then you tag me, and then I like it, and we both chuckle at it, and everything's great again. Until the next time somebody posts an outlandish political opinion, which, I mean, there's actually very few things that we disagree on, I think, anyway. And not to mention, like, we're so goddamn nuanced that, you know, it's like I feel like every discussion we have is pretty productive for the most part.
Speaking of like outlandish political opinions, and I think this is actually pretty topical for this episode. Did you see today that YouTube has made the decision that they are banning all videos that try to talk about election fraud?
Oh,
they're just like, nope, we're not putting that on our platform anymore.
So whether the election, they say that the election fraud is happening or is not?
No, sorry. No, it's like banning if you're trying to claim that that is happening. If you're basically, like, from what I read, if you're trying to claim that Donald Trump really won the election and that there's fraud going on, that those videos are just being removed.
Huh.
Which it's like, in one side, it's like this movie goes to show, it's like there is a danger in, like, just, you know, unsubstantiated ideas being just spread like wildfire, and untrue ideas spread, what do they say, 6 times faster than true ideas? Because, I mean, like we've talked about, this even comes up in Tarkov, like, fake is way more interesting than real, or just like way more exciting. Like, realistic is not as exciting as something that is unrealistic.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, you know, the idea that there's something going on that's not obvious beneath everything else that no one can see, but I've figured it out.
Yeah.
Like, this whole idea, like, it's fun. I mean, it's exhilarating to think that there's this the one oh god, I don't even know where I was going with that.
I don't know, but
I hit a dead end. Sorry, I glanced at my notes and then lost my train of thought. Dude, I shouldn't do that anymore. I should stop looking at my notes.
I've done that before. I'll read a sentence and be like, hold on, where are we?
Fuck it. I'll just read the note that I read. The moment where the one AI asks the other AI, where it's like, do you wonder if this feed isn't good for them?
Yeah.
They're like, nah, it's fine. Nah. It's like, it's okay. But you know, I actually feel like I'm fortunate to know. Another note, just circling back to the whole, like,
sure.
There was some intuitive thing in me that just felt like I wasn't getting anything out of Facebook.
Yeah.
I was on a dating website for a little while, but I realized that a lot of people treated the dating website like Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I'm on this website because I would like to meet somebody cool and, like, go on a date. And like, I'm not here to, like, fucking pass time by having a conversation with you. And I even said that in my profile. If you don't want to, like, actually go on a date, then please, you know, that's not what I'm interested in. Like, I'd actually like to
then swipe left. No.
Yeah,
it may not have been that.
I didn't say swipe left because I always it's speaking of politics. I remember, like, how after the election, all of a sudden the biggest swipe left command was, you should swipe left if you voted for.
Oh yeah, if you voted for X, swipe. Yeah.
It's just like, wow, this is a really interesting that's so polarizing. But once again, I didn't think that there was some conspiracy going on, or I didn't have some idea that someone was trying to sell my attention. But I disabled notifications for everything on my phone, like even my work email, any of my email. It's only if I look at it that I see it. Like, I don't have any notifications turned on, mainly just because they irritated me.
But like you said, like, but you also, it may not have been a conscious thing, but you did have. You just kind of realized that, I mean, well, you said that maybe you weren't getting anything out of it, but is there any part of you that just realized that maybe it wasn't good for you? Not necessarily like you weren't getting anything out of it, that maybe it was just like, oh, hold on, this probably isn't good.
I mean, there was some intuition about it, I guess, that I realized that there was something wrong with it. And it's interesting because it is just like any time you hear anybody else talk about an addiction. The further away I got from it, the more I realized how bad it was.
Yeah.
And I hope I don't get put on some kind of crazy watch list, because this is just an idea. But there was a time where I thought it would be best for the world if hacktivists actually took down, like, the social networking infrastructure. If they found a way to actually destroy it to the point where it couldn't be recovered, figured out where the cloud backups were, all the data centers and destroyed all of it. I thought that it would actually be best for all of us if that happened.
If
Now, I'm not saying
Mr. Robot season 1 happened, like,
yeah. I actually didn't watch the whole thing.
oh that's right.
I got kind of burned out. I've been meaning to give it another chance because you said it was good and I trust your opinion, so I will give it another chance.
I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but I and that's not something that I would do or I have the ability to do or that I would ever organize. But I just thought like that. But then that kind of makes me almost like one of the people they're talking about in the dramatic version of it.
Yeah.
But but I've talked on several occasions that I've actually said that I think social networking websites have, and this sounds like some like old guy, like back when I was a kid, like it's really not. And I'm not 35 yet, so statistically, I'm not at the point where I think everything was better when I was a kid.
Okay.
I really felt like it's dismantled society. It's actually taken the way that we are and how we act and ruined it. Because every time I hear people talk about, did you see that post or did you see this thing? I'm like, shut the fuck up. And it happens so often. Like, and for me, like, this is a weird thing, but like I can't help but overhear everything all the time when I'm out in public.
Okay.
It's like when Xavier hooks up to Cerebro.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I feel like I'm hearing everything all at once, and I end up overhearing just about everything that happens. And the amount of times that I hear people talking about this post or that, or people that don't know what to talk about other than scroll through their fucking news feed and show shit to people.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it really disgusts me, honestly. I think it's sad. But I also mentioned and maybe this seems silly, and also there's only one way I think to pronounce this word, but it sounds pretentious, so I'm going to say it anyway. I call it like almost like naivete or whatever, however the fuck you say it.
Okay.
It's the idea that there's a level of naivete. There's a level of the quality of being naive. I don't want to butcher the word anymore. That happens with people who are older and mature, because when something is new to them that they didn't grow up with, they don't understand how to deal with it or how to use it. And I think when older people are faced with new technology, especially when they're late to the party, which is quite often with new technology for older people, there's a degree in which they're naive about it and they really don't understand how it's supposed to be used. And it's something that's difficult because their brain isn't as plastic as it was when they were younger. And one thing that I mentioned to my mom, and I feel like we've had this conversation several times, is I think that websites like Facebook in particular, but most of the social networking stuff, traps people in their teenage years. It makes everybody act like teenagers. And for me, like it's the vying for other people's attention. It's the popularity contest of it all. It's the talking trash to each other about things that are trivial. It's the fact that people gossip with each other. Did you see what she put on Facebook the other day? Like,
well,
bro, did you see that shit?
What makes you think that was ever any different before Facebook, though?
Makes it easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I definitely I kind of had that same thought that it wasn't really like related to social media, but like it was more like growing up as a kid and then into my teens, I had this idea that, like so many adults like had a different outlook on things. They had their head on their shoulders and they weren't just teens in bigger bodies, and then realizing like as we grew up that no, like everyone really just keeps those same clicky shit. Like, but I guess like part of me thought that was just a cross-generational thing and that it's always been that way.
And I mean, more than likely, I think there are some people who choose to pay attention and like gain wisdom from experience.
Okay.
And some people that don't choose to. And I think that there's been people probably across every generation of individuals who has sort of stayed in that high school mentality. I mean, Bowling for Soup has a song called High School Never Ends for a reason.
Yeah.
The accuracy of that song is kind of crazy. But it's just another thing like where with the Ed Bernays thing, or Edward, I guess, Bernays thing, that
we're close. He said you can call him Eddie.
Oh yeah. Eddie, Edo. That it just makes it easier. I think that it increases people's propensity to do that and behave that way because it makes it easier to behave in that fashion.
That makes sense. Well, I mean, and that basically that's what Facebook is. Like, I mean, it was like, I mean, I saw the other social move. What was it? The Social Network, where Eisenberg played Zuckerberg. Yeah. But yeah, It's basically what it was. Like for the beginning was almost like a digital yearbook. And that's the big thing at the end of high school years was like, oh, here's this yearbook. Let's get everyone to sign it. That's like, and that is the high school mentality, the high school, like, fun days, right?
Yeah. And I think that assuming that the account of the film is true, that it was kind of a way to flex your alma mater a little bit. Like this is yes. Where I went to school. Like if it was like Ivy League or whatever.
I do remember that is how it was in the beginning, that you had to have a dot. Well, I didn't have a Facebook at the very beginning because I wasn't Ivy League, but I remember that when I first had a Facebook, you had to sign up with a .edu email address. You could not create it with anything else. So it was like it was an only college thing.
Yeah, and I don't remember when that stopped. I remember the first time I heard about Facebook, and the idea of it just sounded odd to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only a matter of time, I think, before they realized they could expand, right?
Well, so the idea then, like, so let's get to like the top-down idea. Like, where is this headed, and what is the right answer? And so one of the questions that I have is, does there need to be a almost like, hold on, let me step back one question from that. There is an issue with freedom of speech on these platforms. And I think that that's what we started to even touch on with like the YouTube thing, where, okay, so YouTube is a private company. They get to make the decision of what they want hosted on their platform. And if they decide that they don't want videos claiming that this person actually lost the election when they, and they don't have to host that. But then people can claim that their side is being censored. However, like we just brought up, YouTube is a private company. They get to choose that. So like, does there almost need to be a certain point where we start to look at these social media platforms as not private companies, but almost as these are like public utilities that need to be, almost like government controlled rather than being private entities?
Let me use a rhetorical device from one of my favorite examples, Jesus, and respond to your question with a question.
Okay.
Do you agree that if someone has a permit to carry a concealed firearm, that a private business should be allowed to prohibit that person from carrying that firearm on their premises?
Yes.
Okay, me too. So that's like a good spot, I think, to start. I think we probably agree on this, that, and based on the stress you put on the fact that it's a private company.
Yeah.
It's kind of like maybe what needs to happen is we need to, because there's no specificity to freedom of speech, because there was no platform like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. When freedom of speech was written, when the Bill of Rights was written, the largest platform someone could have was like literally a soapbox in their town square, right? Like there's no way that you could talk to the entire world at one time. Yeah,
and now that it's possible to do so, it changes things. I mean, first with radio, then with television. I mean, radio had a limited radius anyway.
Yeah.
Then with television, and that there probably needs to be another amendment that has some specificity to what areas you're allowed to. If you go to a public place, because the thing is you don't have public access to a social networking website. They can delete your account anytime they want to. They can remove your access anytime they want.
Yes.
So like it is a private company, so it's almost like, oh shit, the plot's so goddamn thick here.
It's weird because even though they are private, and like you said, you can delete it and you don't need access to it, it's like we do live in a world where it is almost required to have some sort of digital presence. You can't just decide not to be, like, an email address something, it's like you have to, like, or you're just not going to be able to function in today's economy. Sure, if you're retired, if you're already like out of the economy completely, then sure, you could probably do that. But it's like it is as close to required as possible, but there is not a public service for it. We are almost required to use these private services. But it's like, but how lame would the government's public social media be? It would be worse than Google Plus. Like if there was like, a .gov social media platform that you were required to have a profile on, and that was like the official, like you couldn't be banned from it because it was, this is the public option for it. It would be horrible. No one would want to use it. Like everyone would still use Instagram and everything instead. Like,
yep, very true. So I think the classic liberalism idea is that you should be allowed to do whatever you would like as long as it doesn't harm someone else.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Second Amendment is that you can say whatever you want to so long as that doesn't threaten or incite violence.
Well, First Amendment.
Oh, sorry. I talk about the Second Amendment so much that
it's just it's just in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it just came.
The Second Amendment is the one about hanging the arms from a large grizzly bear on your wall. You're allowed to a set of bear arms. Everyone is allowed one set of bear arms.
Yeah, you get those. I have mine in the other room. I really like my bear arms. So the First Amendment, sorry.
Yeah.
And there's must be a reason why it's the first, I would think, that it's that you can say what you would like so long as it doesn't threaten or incite violence. And I think that should carry over to like a social networking platform. But are you talking specifically?
Well, it actually, it says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the I guess maybe there is somewhere where it specifically goes into saying inciting violence, but it doesn't in the overview of it does not say anything about that. Now so you can go into other clauses where it does have like the free exercise clause and libel, slander, defamation, obscenity, government speech, things like that, but
I think that, well, regardless of if it's covered in the freedom of speech, it is against the law to threaten someone or incite violence, right?
I believe, well, okay, so that's the thing though, is all that the freedom of speech does is protects you from the government from, like, there's a difference between, hold on, what does this one say? Because there's a difference between saying something and making a violent threat in the eyes of the U.S. law, apparently.
Okay, so while it's not included, so the limitations of the amendment are actually within the law.
Exactly. Yes.
So, but the amendment itself doesn't give its own limitations. It's just limited by whatever laws exist that might infringe on that.
Exactly. And apparently you would look at like court cases and court decisions based on precedents, basically to determine. Right. Yeah. Like, you know how our laws are. It's all like, gray area. Yeah.
And that pretty much, you know how laws are. They're they're all up for interpretation as hell.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't really know, but I think that specifically what you mean here is when a social, not what they allow, but that a private company that's a social networking platform picks and chooses what they want to ban. Like most likely, and I don't really. So the one thing that I will stand by and I will fight and argue like hell for, when anybody comes up with any idea or opinion about an election being rigged or Russian collusion or blah, 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 blah. The one thing that I will always fight everybody on is I don't know everything there is to know. So I actually cannot really, I can give you an opinion based on the things that I've observed and that I've seen and I've read, but I don't really know everything or all things.
Yeah.
So for YouTube to ban all, and I'm not saying that I agree with any of this, for YouTube to ban any video related to the election being rigged and that Donald Trump actually won it, it's clear that they disagree with that.
Yes.
But I don't really know that they have a set of data available to 100% say that didn't happen. So because there's no absolute way to be 100% certain at the current time, and I don't know how long or if it would ever be possible for us to have all the information available to say that with complete 100% positivity that they only did that because they disagreed with it and not because of anything involving truth necessarily. And once again, I'm not saying that it's untrue that that the election was rigged. I'm also not saying that it was true. I don't really know. I don't have the information available to really make a concrete conclusion on it.
Mm.
And that's the one thing that I will always say, is that when everybody wants to talk whatever thing about whatever issue at work, I always interject, well, I don't have enough information to have an opinion on this, so I'm sorry, I can't participate in the conversation.
See, I definitely misunderstood, because I was under the impression that they are banning misinformation. Not that it's just that they disagree, that it's that, similar to the way that you can make a documentary about the earth being flat and put that on YouTube and that's more. There's a difference between having an opinion on something and lying to people and telling them that, you know what I mean? Like that to me is, I think, where YouTube realizes they are being used. Their platform is being used to educate people, whether or not they want it to be entertainment or education. There are people that will watch YouTube videos and think that they've learned something new about the world, and that it's a college education they just got. So I think that's what they're worried about, is stopping the spread of misinformation and things that are not true, rather than just something they disagreed with.
I gotcha. Yeah, and I mean, for the record, I mean, I find it very unlikely that any election results or vote counts were tampered with to the degree where it would actually sway the results of the election.
Mm-hmm.
If anything happened, I find it unlikely that it was enough to actually completely change it. So, but I mean, by this standard, all the flat Earth videos should be banned also, because that is misinformation. I mean, if that's YouTube standard, which I would be fine with. Actually, I fully support that. Please do. All the videos about lizard people would be gotten rid of. Anything about the Rothschild working with the Illuminati to put the lizard people in power, so Hillary Clinton can drink the blood of children, that all needs to be taken off of there. And I think there's only so much they can do at one time, and I think that there is one pressing, dangerous issue right now that they are dealing with that is not. I mean, Twitch has methods of taking things down very quickly. How long does it actually take to write an effective algorithm to take something down when it needs to be taken down, or at least to put it in front of somebody so they can examine it? I don't know how much effort that takes. I don't know. But I mean, one thing I learned from this documentary, I guess, that it surprised me, how small some of these companies are. I would have assumed that it's like, oh, they have the manpower to do this, but it's like, because you hear that, it's like, oh, this is a $500 billion company, but it's like, when realistically so much of their work is being done by the algorithms, that it's like, oh yeah, their actual, like, their workforce is not that large. Like, if they actually had something that requires, because so much of what they do is not hands-on. There are systems running it. So it's like, if you actually require something that all of a sudden a person needs to look at, it's like, oh shit, we don't have the manpower for that. Like, we don't employ people. Like, we have a team of 50,000 robots. That's it. Like they're all, it's a bunch of ones and zeros, guys. Come on. I think that I'm still not really understanding the question as clearly as I thought I was to begin with. So I guess, are you asking whether we should trust the private organizations to handle misinformation and content on their platform, or if there should be regulations to enforce? I guess that's what it comes down to, is because I think we both agree that private corporations should have their own freedom to choose. It comes down to the point where the private corporation gets to just decide. And okay, it's like in this case, they get to just decide, okay, all of the videos saying that the election was rigged, we're going to take those down. Now, I am under the impression that is because they are saying that these videos are actually making claims that are false. But let's say let's say that it's just, we disagree with this, we want to censor this side. Now, all of a sudden, you have where would someone on the right be able to go for their to see that, like, YouTube is it, there is no like other YouTube. There is no, like, what is the alternative YouTube you would go to look up videos? So we're in a situation where our one source, like, what we would look at is almost what has been a public entity or a public resource for so long are actually now private companies. So if you end up where a private company disagrees with you, you all of a sudden don't have the access to this resource that
YouTube is just a household name. Like, if you feel like you're not welcome on YouTube, or your voice is not welcome on YouTube, or your belief system doesn't resonate there, where do you go when YouTube is pretty much a monopoly on internet videos?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you don't have an option. I mean, that's it. They're like the Bell, phone company of video websites to some degree, at least.
So that was the question was more like, are we to the point where there almost should be public options where it is like literally an official government YouTube video, or official government website that you go to for streaming videos, and a one government website where you have your social media network or things like that?
Where the actual First Amendment applies, because it's actually considered public domain.
Exactly, and it's not a private company making a decision. Yeah.
And the point that you made, that most likely no one would use it, they'd still be on the other stuff, and I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I feel you now. That makes sense. And there are, in making the assumption that YouTube did ban videos because they are making claims of fact that are in fact false, and you can insubstantiate those claims beyond the shadow of a doubt, then I think that's great.
Yeah.
But there are some issues that are more nuanced, that are much more opinion than they are fact, that do end up getting banned from different platforms, YouTube being one of them.
Yes.
And there's some times where it's like, if you say one thing that isn't problematic, then that means that everything you've ever said is no longer welcome on this platform. And
and like you were bringing up earlier, it's like if there is supposed to be a line drawn where freedom of speech ends at either inciting violence, or who makes that decision? Who decides that, this speech that you're doing now is inciting violence?
And also slander and libel still apply.
Yeah.
I would think those are still crimes. So I mean, that's like, how do you enforce that too? But and it's funny because when you think about some of the ideas that are kind of being pushed, once again, it's just that makes it easier thing, because there's plenty of websites that specialize in conspiracy theories and many different other things. There's flat earth websites.
Yeah. So
you would still be able to get to that content. And many of the stuff that you see on Facebook is just linking you to somewhere else.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier to get there and easier to find.
Yeah. Makes it easier to share with others. Yeah.
Yeah. And a completely amoral algorithm that's put together to put things that are appealing in front of you to keep your attention.
Yep.
Keep your attention on whatever it happens to be.
And to go one step further, to make them more money. It wants to keep your attention because the number of seconds you spend looking at it is going to make them cents on the dollar. Yep.
And while it's a scary thing to say that you're not the customer, you're the product, it is true, because someone else is paying this company to get your attention, and that does make your attention the product, which in turn makes you the product, which is kind of scary, but it's not a sensational thing to say. It's, I would say, accurate.
No, it is. Well, I love. Okay, so it is accurate. I love that. For years I had heard the old, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. If it's free, you're the product. Like, and that's a way that I kind of thought of things for a long time, where it's like, why is this free to me? Like, I mean, like Facebook. I remember thinking that even as like, geez, I was 18 or 17, I guess, when I was I was in college, so I was 18. But yeah, I remember like signing up for that it's like, thinking like, well, what is the model here? Like, what is the business model? Why is this, there is a company spending a lot of money to run all of these servers, to pay these graphic designers, to do all of this, to make this run. Where is this money going when I'm not paying anything to be a part of it? How is this making, like, so I remember like having that mentality, but I love the, sorry dude, for lack of a better term, the kind of crazy looking dude with dreads in this movie that I think has like brilliant man though, like has some of my favorite things that are said in this movie come out of this gentleman's mouth. But he says that it's like, that's actually not the product. It's the gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception that is the product. And that, like, thinking of it one step further, that it's not even just you being the product, it's conditioning you to be a better product in the future by like making you the way that you interact with this system is almost the Pavlovian, like it's conditioning you to be better at interacting with it and to be a better product. That is like it is like a dystopian kind of tinfoil hat idea, but it is like it's true. It's fucking true.
Yeah, and you could use the term being groomed
Yes. Yeah.
to be a better product.
Yep.
And a lot of that is like, and he is very brilliant. He actually makes a lot of really good points. Who was it? Who was it that said that we need to have? Because someone in there said that we need to have some shared understanding of reality.
I don't remember who that was, but yes, that was a yeah.
And I think that's true, and it doesn't seem like we necessarily have that. That you and I have talked a little while ago about. I don't even know what we were talking about, but the idea that you create a narrative and then you find facts to support it, as opposed to
Yes.
gathering the information and then weaving a narrative based on the information you can get.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and that to me, like, I try really hard not to do that, but like, I mean, I know people that believe that that 5G is some kind of radiation.
Yep.
Like I'm acquainted with people that believe that. I'm acquainted with people that believe that if you get a vaccine, you will catch autism.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, to be fair, there isn't a whole lot understood about autism. Not as much as you would think.
But more than that.
But I find it extremely unlikely that it can somehow change your brain. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But it's fun to think. I even heard some people having a conversation about anti-vaxxing at the sneaker store recently.
Yeah.
I didn't participate. I didn't interject, but it was hard not to.
Yeah, I've had to just like learn that keeping my mouth quiet is just the way to go. It's just.
But I don't want to be like the thing that I said earlier about like this sort of stuff messing up society or whatever.
Yeah.
One thing that I mentioned at the very beginning that I want to just reiterate and talk specifically about in that regard is that there are a lot of things that are not good for us.
Yeah.
That are destroying society. We can look at the and this idea that the same guy you were talking about mentions that you have to find a what do you call it? Did he call it a fiscal gain?
Okay, I can see that.
The world is centered, or he might have just said financial gain. The world is centered around financial gain. So you need to actually create a financial gain for the companies to change this.
Yes.
And
yeah.
also the idea that these are companies.
There has to be some sort of incentive. Yeah.
Right. And then later on, it was stated that there are companies that these are publicly owned, I think pretty much all of them, that if they just dismantle everything and essentially stop making money, well, then they have a bunch of investors that they're going to get hell from.
Yep.
And there's a whole lot of like stuff related. Like, I don't know if they can actually, something about suing, the investors can actually sue. I don't know about any of that stuff, but it seems like they're kind of stuck. And that is unfortunate. But it's also that the financial gain in many industries is not there are some industries that with the best intentions, which is to make more money and provide a cheaper product to people that costs the consumer less money and makes them more money, which then makes their employees more money, which then helps them pay their bills, which allows them to feed their families and blah 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 blah, and buy a Lexus and blah blah whatever.
Yeah.
I've been blah blahing too much in this episode. I'm sorry.
You forgot it was supposed to be blah blah trickle down blah blah blah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Blah blah trickle blah blah. Job creators blah blah blah.
You got it.
Yeah, that I get that, but. And there were good intentions, I suppose, but corn being cheap to produce, the fact that carbohydrates are cheaper, means that our diets are skewed a little too heavily toward carbohydrates, which is not good for us. This is one of the few countries where we have overweight poor people.
Yeah.
There's the quest for stuff. There's the fact that we work jobs that give us monetary units that are essentially a replacement for bartering.
Yeah.
But because some of our jobs don't actually result in a tangible result, we actually feel the need to buy a bunch of crap as tokens of our success or whatever we have. The fact that television, like what we call news, seems to be partisan and that it's biased. So like, hey, if we didn't have Facebook, we'd have TV.
Hold on. Are you doing the Fight Club rant right now? This is. Are you Jack's
fucking channels? I say let the chips fall where they may. I think I am, but Chuck Palahniuk was onto something, man.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that shit.
Yep.
But there's all kinds of things that like I think we should also mention here. There's the idea that the idea that there's not 4 seasons in clothing, there's 52, in which the clothing industry wants to push you to believe that you are not in fashion, and that makes you invalid and insignificant. And you need to immediately get this sweatshop slave labor clothing that's way cheaper than it should be because of this wonderful thing that we called the global economy that we thought was going to be so great. But, and, you know, I digress. But, you know, and I'm saying everything I just said, like, take some of it with a grain of salt, take some of it as absolute truth, but or as close to absolute as one imperfect being can be. So maybe not at all. But, you know, there's just more to consider. That the film, I understand that the subject is about social networking websites and that industry and the devices that are used to keep your attention.
Yeah.
So I know that that's the reason why they mentioned this, but it's not the sole thing. And once again, the Tristan, whose name I butchered at the beginning of our podcast. Sorry, buddy. If you want to be a guest to set the record straight, that would be nice. We can't pay you. Sorry. That he mentions that it's not all bad. It's pretty cool that I can just get my phone out and then a car will show up and take me to where I need to be. That's really cool. There's not really any such thing as being stranded anymore if you have a phone on you. There's a lot of great stuff that
well, yeah. You have to acknowledge that it has also just changed the world for the better remarkably. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not 100% bad. There's plenty of good things that it's done. And, you know, I just think that as individuals, we need to be more discerning about our use of it. That I don't think it's something that could be completely outlawed or something that we should get rid of in our lives altogether. Same thing, like, and I feel the same way with anything. Alcohol, I don't have a healthy relationship with it, so I don't drink it. But if you have a healthy relationship with it and you're able to partake in it without it fucking up your life, like within reason and with some degree of moderation, then go for it. That's cool. But as long as people can have some discernment, that's
what it comes down to is being aware of that. There's a lot of people out there that drink and they think they have a handle on it and they don't. I don't know what percentage of drinkers that is. I don't know if we have the data, but I'm interested to know. Excuse me. I'm interested. Oh my God. I'm interested to know what percentage of social media users would be even aware that it could possibly be having this impact on their brain, or that, you know what I'm saying? Like that it's like, at least with alcohol, there's, you know, we have warnings on there's a legal age that, you know, there's all sorts of regulations put in place that, you know, that it's a controlled substance, you know, that there are some dangers involved with it. If you choose to partake, you're at least being educated first on what you're getting into. Versus with this, I mean, like in the movie, like, you know, that we throw a smartphone in 11-year-olds' hands and give them Snapchat and wonder, like, what are these filters doing to their psychology? You know, it's like, I feel like there is, it makes sense to draw the parallels there, but I feel like we're dipping our toes into something that is so different for humanity that it may not be just a way to, you know, we can draw a parallel to something that we've encountered before. It may be so different that it is like, you know, something just brand new.
Yeah, that perhaps the idea, I mean, just kind of build on your point, the idea that you mentioned earlier that's expressed in the film, that maybe it's not just like all these other new things. Maybe it's not just like the newspaper or just like the radio or just like the television, and we'll just get used to it later.
Yeah.
But I would also say that the individuals that had this conversation about television ruining people, I think they were correct. I don't think it's any different. I think that people saying that it sucks that nobody talks on the train anymore because they have their heads buried in newspapers, I think they're right. It is a shame that those people didn't talk on the train, because they could have used that time to socialize and get to know each other and maybe even bond with some other people and make some friends, and could have read the newspaper at a later time, perhaps during lunch, you know?
Yep.
And it's not that, it's that those things were a problem and they are a problem. And obviously the newspaper's not an issue for anybody anymore because no one fucking reads it. You just go to whatever website or just scroll through your Facebook and call that news. But one thing that I did want to touch on from the very beginning of the film, the validation from others thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And creating like body image issues. I remember like a while ago, a female friend of mine, someone pretty close to me, she said that she wanted to look different. It's like, Okay, well, okay. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, it's your prerogative if you want to do something
Yeah.
different.
Most
But
people cut their hair, change their wardrobe. Yeah.
what is it that you
Change is
want?
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, what is it that you want to look different? Like, my body. Like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, if it's you can like exercise or whatever,
Mhm.
maybe lift some weights and change the shape of your body. What is it in particular? And she's like, well, here, let me show you. She shows me a picture of an Instagram model. She says, I want to look like her. And I was like,
But you're not her.
well, I said you do. and, and she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I mean, her, what is they called? Medial deltoids? No, lateral. Her lateral deltoids are a little more toned than yours, but other than that, you look almost exactly like this person does.
Hmm.
I don't understand what you need to change or how you perceive that this person looked differently than you. And maybe this has nothing to do with the social media. Maybe it has nothing to do with Instagram. Maybe she would have thought that about anybody. But I just have this idea that um, maybe there were already body image issues there outside of it.
Mhm.
But I just thought, like, you know what? And also, like, why do you want to look like this person even if you didn't? And but you did make a good point that even if she didn't look like her, it would have made sense for me to say, but you're not her. Why would you? You need to look like you
Yeah,
know
exactly. It's like, I
whatever,
mean,
yeah, whatever version of you within reason that you can get to, which is good, like.
yeah, you want to be
And
the best you, not like it's same thing like when you take a picture of hair to a to a barber. Like you're not you can't look like this dude with that haircut. It's just like, hey, I like this style. Make me look, as good as I could look with something similar to that style. But it's like it's not going to be like, oh yeah, all of a sudden cut me like this. Oh, I look like Brad Pitt now. Thank you. Yeah.
and it's like when the comparison group gets so big, the temptation to compare yourself to others becomes vast and great, and
Yeah.
and that makes the difficulty even greater for you. And one of the things that me, I have.
Well, and another thing too that's interesting that social media is unique in the first time we have this is we have this actual metric, telling you that person is successful. You have a number sitting there saying this photo got X thousand likes. People like this, like versus like if you just see a photo, in a stack of photos, you're not having a reinforcement telling you, no, this is what society is looking for.
Like, you're supposed to like this,
Yeah.
and if you don't like this, there's something wrong with you, and you should want to be this. And
Yes, exactly.
if you aren't this, then you're not good enough.
Yep.
And for me, being that I have a genetic muscle disease, I have a form of muscular dystrophy. It took a long time for me to overcome that temptation to compare myself to others. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not. Well, actually, I was gonna say I'm not Dwayne Johnson. Very few fucking people are Dwayne Johnson.
Exactly, one person is Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, and that is Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
Like,
And also, there's another dude named The Rock that looks a lot like him.
I'm not the only one that noticed that.
No, they look very similar, but it probably a cousin, maybe.
It's uncanny. Even. Mm-hmm. It's super creepy. But yeah, and so that's just something that I had to get over. Like, that's why I don't work out with somebody else. That's why when I'm at the gym, I don't look at everybody else. I just focus on my workout and do what I can do.
Yeah.
And I think that when we start to compare ourselves to this immense degree of people, which actually there's a fun video that the buff dudes did.
Okay.
Where the younger brother with the shorter hair.
Yeah.
Is that Hudson?
I don't know their names. Yeah.
He did a video where he showed you, this is what I have to do to get ready for a photo shoot.
Yes. And that's what I wanted to bring up too, is like, not only are we just comparing ourselves to others, we're comparing ourselves to the idealized version of others. We're looking at ourselves every day and seeing them at their peak that took them, like you're saying, what, a week and a half to prepare for, to get to that, like, and thinking that they look like that every day walking around.
And he had to like slam a freaking half liter of water after that because he was dehydrated as hell.
Yeah.
He's trying to make his muscles look all toned and stuff. And yeah, and he got to an unhealthy level of body fat. Like, it just, And you know, when people talk about Facebook as being someone's highlight reel, it like gives you
Yeah.
this idea that you're not living the kind of life that you should, when in reality everyone's living that life.
Yep.
Like you see your ex-girlfriend like smiling next to this new guy, but it was just one photo at one moment, and it was 10 minutes before they got in a huge fight, you know, and you don't know that, like, she's
Yeah.
not happier with him, like it's just the same as it was. And you know, the part when they actually try to push Ben to look like they mess with him, like the algorithm or whatever, because they try to make it look malicious, but the ex-girlfriend thing, that one
Oh,
got it back on there.
yes. When he's doing the like week long of not touching his phone, they're like going through like the emergency ways of getting him to react. Yeah. Yep.
And obviously they dramatize it, but that is common, that you know,
What?
there's a temptation to like look at what your ex is doing, you know.
Well, I mean, and that is like what they do. I mean, I've noticed that because of me being not very active on social media, I have noticed that there's times where I will go, you know, a week or so without touching Facebook, and I notice those types of notifications where it does that it's like, oh, this, you know, it starts with so and so has new views today, or like, or no, I'm sorry, like my Tyler TV page has new views today. Check out who looked at this, and then it's like it sends you other notifications of like, oh, look at what this person posted in this group and stuff, and it just wants you to come back and check things out. Like it's
Yeah, and there's even like on when I used to have an OkCupid account, there's like a premium account you can get.
yeah.
Well, I think you've used it. Like it'll be like 8,000 people like you. Pay $10 this month to find out who.
Yep, Tinder does the same thing where it's like it'll tell you like, oh, you have this many like secret admirers, it calls them, because they're someone that has swiped right on you that you don't know who they are. It's like, oh, if you pay this much a month, you can know who these people are.
And in some ways, it's almost a little spooky too, because it's like then you have an edge. They might not know you, but you can find out who that. It's just weird, um, but yeah, I think that a lot of people will actually go and seek validation from others and become addicted to that idea, by having people like their photos or use the fire emoji when you have your makeup just right or what have you. I mean,
I was rooting for the eggplant.
that was pretty funny.
That was good.
I mean, you know, look, man, when I got my makeup on just right, I know it. I don't need anybody to tell me. Does anyone say on fleek anymore? Is that cool anymore?
I have no idea. I was gonna say that, and then it just sounded old. Yeah.
I think it's dated now. But there is one thing that, like, is this similar to substance addiction, in that your grandma can go to the hospital and have surgery and be prescribed morphine and then leave the hospital and never feel compelled to use an opioid again, whereas another person can get Vicodin for a back injury and then become addicted to it for the rest of their life? Is there a propensity that people have maybe to being more addicted to social media than others? And because addiction, if I'm not mistaken, acts on the dopamine system, and it is essentially a survival circuit. So like you get a dopamine rush, and I believe serotonin is probably involved too, or I think there's like precursors and all kinds of other shit. But if you have sex or you eat food that's sweet, like calorie dense food, like with a lot of fat in it, that your dopamine system goes kerpow.
Yep.
I have a feeling that there's other feelings of well-being you get from being comfortable that may or may not actually be involved in that. But I think that the fact that this acts on the dopamine system gives you this idea that it's good for your survival. That someone mentions in the documentary that you're conditioned to want the approval of your tribe.
Yes.
But what happens if your tribe is 10,000 other people?
Exactly. Yeah, we evolved for that. But the conditions are changing so much faster than our biology that we can't keep up. Our tribe now is effectively 2.7, I think, is the number of people online. So exactly, we have a tribe of 2.7 billion people now.
And that's just a little too much. That's a few too many people. That's too much stress.
Way too much.
You know, living in a community was good for our survival, and the ones that ended up living in communities like survived, and that we think that getting the approval of the other people in our community is good for our survival because it means they'll keep us around. It increases our likelihood of living and procreating and all that stuff. But now we're being fooled into thinking that something that isn't good for us is. And the same thing, like cocaine acts on your dopamine system, cigarettes do the same thing, everything that's addictive does.
But the thing is, The one difference is I don't think any other addictive substance is grooming you to be more addicted to it.
That is true.
There is definitely the proclivity. I do think that you're right that probably some people are more, that some people have a higher chance of, you know, the person that uses once and gets addicted. I'm sure that's the same with social media, where some people can, your grandma can, you have a Facebook and use it, you know, once a month and she's fine, or another grandma could get addicted and all of a sudden be, you know, every day on Facebook for 12 hours. But I do think that no matter what, even though there's a difference in proclivity, I think there is something fundamentally different about this, that it does like almost groom you to just be more in. Yeah.
I mean, the brain is a thing that adapts to patterns, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's not that difficult to make it do that.
Yep.
Well, it can be. It just depends. But once a habit is there, the habit is very hard to get rid of,
Yeah.
no matter what it is.
Yep. One other thing that I wanted to touch on here, that we started to talk about like what we should do, and some of the, and I forgot to mention, we kind of dealt with this in the past, where we recognized that a medium needs to be honest about who their audience is, and respect what they're showing their audience. And I think the example that was touched on a little bit in the movie was the Saturday morning cartoons. It is completely up to the network to air whatever advertisements they want during that block. But at a certain point, there's the ethical design of things, where you realize that if your audience is primarily children, maybe we should be careful which advertisements we're showing them. And I think that that's kind of the same approach that we need to take to social media. Again, like you're saying, that it's not like, oh, we just need to get rid of it because it's evil, but it is like, hold on, we need to recognize that especially for children, especially for young minds, there is an impression that is being created that we are, for lack of a better term, warping how people are viewing the world and what their reality is. And maybe that we need to just be a little more conscious of like what, not necessarily even just the advertising that we're showing on that, but just the methods in which that is interfacing with the human mind.
Our understanding of this is relatively little. I think that we've created a thing, and even the individuals that have created it aren't really sure what it is yet.
Yes.
And there's more understanding that needs to occur before we can get to the point where we really know what to do with it. And what you were saying, yes, Saturday morning cartoons, most likely children, but if you can figure out who somebody is pretty accurately, then you can also use a set of rules that determines which things are okay and not okay to advertise to that demographic, be it young people or at-risk people for any kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, wasn't it stated that you could actually even figure out if someone's likelihood of suicide was high?
Probably, yeah. Oh, yes, it was, like suicide, anxiety, and depression. Yeah, they were all like, yep.
And if that is possible, if you can really figure that out, then at that point, shouldn't you actually have some responsibility to try to help if you can?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe instead of this new great flat earth video or this fantastic Alton Brown cooking video that we know they're going to love, maybe you can throw something in there about how they can get help.
But what if you know from their file that is going to cause them to immediately disengage? That is actually causing your shareholders money by driving that user away from the, like I'm saying, I'm on your side. There needs to be ethics in business, but when the bottom line is profit, how do you reconcile that to your shareholders that like, oh, we are going to take a dip in profit because we are going to push users away from our platform for mental health reasons? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sure that there are smart people that could sell that idea to a room, but those smart people are being paid to do other things right now.
There's that devil's advocate, I know. But no, that is a fair point. Like, it is, what do you do? And I think that maybe there should be entire departments of people hired to figure out but it's like the whole way to monetize it. How else can you monetize it? Would people use? Actually, I think people would use Facebook if they had to pay for it. I think there's many people that would actually pay to use it, and maybe that's where they go. But even then, like, would that be the appropriate thing to do? Would that be the best thing to do? And I don't really know.
I don't know either. Yeah.
I
do know that, I mean, I think something has to change. I do think that, I mean, the movie is, you know, somewhat alarmist, and I'm sure that, you know, just like an Inconvenient Truth, there is a good amount of truth to it, and it's probably overblowing it some amount. But I do think that, like, the trajectory that we are headed, if things do not change, we are definitely headed in a very bad direction. Where, especially like you talked about, the whole not even having an agreed upon reality, people having different facts and things like that to me is a very dangerous direction, where if that's not corrected, I mean, if you picture where we're going to be in 20 years, 30 years, like, it's kind of fucking crazy. It is very strange. So I'm not exactly sure what needs to be done, other than the fact that definitely something needs to change.
And it's entirely possible that this is just going to go like the presentation that Tristan put together at Google. He was the Google guy, right?
Tristan was he was at Google and a few other places, yeah. But
well, it'll be just like that presentation where everybody agrees with it and it circles around Google, and then next thing you know, nothing happens. I have a feeling that that's probably not going to be any different, that this documentary is going to be like that.
Yep.
But it would be interesting to me if somehow people got this word out using social networking websites.
And it almost has to be
number of people
at this point. I mean, like we talked about, that is the platform at this point. You know, like how else would you spread any sort of information?
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to touch on too. How funny was the extreme center? Was that not a great touch to have him like falling for the extreme center play?
It was really funny. It was a very very generic thing to call it, but also for you to kind of get the point. And the funny thing is because of the disparity between the information that people get, everybody had a different idea of what extreme center was and what they stood for.
Yes. Well, and that I like that too, because the whole point, like, this doesn't need to be politicized. This, like, so many things just become politicized. You know, like a fucking virus became a political point in our country. You know what? Like, so like things like this don't need to be politicized, where one side is going to be for it and one side is against it. So I love the fact that, like, they made an enemy the extreme center. So both sides are like, oh yeah, those assholes over there. Like, yeah.
Wait. Are we the extreme center?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh no.
We kind of are, yeah. Well, I'm not extreme. I'm the what's like the most boring center. I'm the vanilla center. I'm like the creamy white of an Oreo cookie.
Yeah, I'm like the beige cinder block square shaped room.
That is so racist. Why did you call yourself beige? Was that a race thing?
I always call myself beige.
Oh, okay.
I really do, but no, it's like, but you know, it's like, that's boring. Like, it's so, yeah, that's us. We're the,
but the whole, what it comes down to though, in my mind, is what Tristan talked about with ethical design, where there almost has to be self-imposed limitations. When you set things up to be where, you almost rely on the honesty system, or you expect people to have good intentions, and you don't set the rules up to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, almost always people are actors that will cut every corner. They will do everything they can within the rules up until the point of causing damage. So when the rules are set out in a way that it has to be self-imposed limitations, that in my mind is like the only thing that can be done, I guess. Because the laws are not in a way that, the laws are not set up in a way that can enforce any sort of change to these industries, and I don't think any sort of change to the laws would either be realistic or happen in any sort of timeline that would make sense. So it's like it almost has to just be the industries themselves deciding like, oh, we could do this for profit, but we need to do this instead, because at a certain point, like, you almost have to value humanity over profit, and that is not something that we are good at doing.
That is true. And with self-limitation being the only solution, it's really not the best.
Yeah.
At least right now. I mean, that being the only thing that can be done. But, you know, for me, like, I would just say, hey, delete all your social media stuff for a week. And if you can't stay off of it for a week, you have a problem.
Yeah,
And
take the Ben challenge, right? Yeah.
yeah, the what challenge?
Wasn't it Ben in the movie that he had to stay off?
Oh
his...
yeah,
yeah,
the
like he had
challenge,
to.
yeah. Like, I mean, don't just like, I mean, delete all of it. Take all of it off of your device, and without the temptation there, the notifications, that it might make it a little bit easier. But if you still can't, then there's a problem, and maybe try to figure that out.
I would also, I would echo, I think it was Tristan and multiple other people in this movie said, step one, step one, turn off notifications. If you don't even want to try it as hard as to take an entire week away from it, just don't let. One of my guild leaders in WoW made this point one time, and I love the way he said it. It was like he was talking about using Discord and how, you know, he wanted the ability to ping people on Discord, and people were complaining that it was buzzing their phone and waking them up at night with notifications and stuff like that. And he was like, well, hold on. The issue here is a notification issue, not a ping issue. It's like, I should be able to use Discord as this. If Discord is pinging your phone and waking you up in the middle of the night, like, that is a separate issue that you need to address with notifications. And like, that to me is almost what we need to do with so many social media things, and realize like how these things are, like they talked about in the movie, competing for our attention, and how they are taking those slices of our life with the push notifications. When you have a phone that dictates, oh, you're supposed to check me now by vibrating and something, rather than you saying, you know, this is my Facebook time, I'm going to now open it and see what's going on. That, I think, taking the control over your time, and when you're doing that, I think is one of the most powerful things that can be step one.
Agreed. Yeah, iterative movement's probably the best, and maybe if you get to the point where you can disable the notifications, then maybe you won't need to delete the account. Maybe you can just pick out a point in the day where you want to get on there and look around, and then get off, and then wait till the next day, or maybe 2 times a day, whatever.
It's almost like there needs to be some balance there.
Yeah, like that thing we talked about almost the entire first 52 weeks of our podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But another thing is that the problem, though, is that because of the way it conditions you, it's almost like when you check it, it's really hard to get back off.
Yes. Yeah. And that's all just discipline. There's nowhere you're going to find that externally, other than just, you know, deep down inside yourself saying like, I know I have something else I need to do. I know that it is easier to sit here and go like this, but I should be sitting here going like this. I'd want to say the usual line of like, well, we covered everything in my notes, but we definitely did not. I have so many notes for this movie, just because there was so much this made me think about. But like, I mean, we are at a point where like we're getting timely towards stop. And do we have anything else that you want to bring up before we start wrapping up?
I think I hit pretty much everything that was like super important, because I have shitloads of notes too. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. And I actually do have a favorite line.
I do too. I grabbed well, before we do favorite line, or no, it's the other order. Sorry. I wanted to, I'm freaking out about skipping the next episode and going straight to the outro, because I did that like 3 episodes in a row, and I made myself edit the episodes and gave myself all sorts of extra work. But no, we do favorite line, then we do next week's episode. Okay. So for favorite line, what is yours? When you do it first.
My favorite line is, when you think of AI, you know, and AI is going to ruin the world, and you see like a Terminator, and you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, you see drones, and think like, oh, we're going to kill people with AI. And what people miss is that AI already runs today's world right now.
Yeah, that's a good one. That was actually one of the ones I looked at. I almost did the thing where I picked a funny line because it was like, so I picked it, but then realized not only did I not want to do that, but it was a line from a. So doing favorite line from a documentary is weird because in a documentary, there are so many things that are not the movie itself. So it was a line from a news clip that they used at one point in the movie. So it's like, is that kind of cheating? Because the line is not actually from the movie itself, but it was someone in a news clip said, "Can you get coronavirus from eating Chinese food?" And that just cracked me up. That made me laugh so hard that I had that in my favorite line section. And that was gonna be it. But that is the oh fuck, what is it? Honorable mention? Is that runner up?
The honorable mention.
Yeah. But it had to be brought up. I had to throw that a little bit of light. But no, my favorite line though, again, from the gentleman with the dreadlocks. This to me it made me think a lot. I think that he said a few things that really made me think in this movie, and this line really just really awakened an idea in me, I guess, that I hadn't really thought about. We've created a world in which online connection has become primary, especially for younger generations. And yet, in that world, anytime two people connect, the only way it's financed is through a sneaky third person who's paying to manipulate those two people. So we've created an entire global generation of people who are raised within a context where the very meaning of communication, the very meaning of culture, is manipulation. It's sad.
That's a good one.
It's a good one, but it's sad.
It's eerie.
It is eerie, but it's like it is. Hopefully, we are realizing things while we still have time to turn things around. I guess it's like hopefully we're able to turn the ship around before it collides with the iceberg. I guess, but
addiction is a strong thing.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah. Let's hope though. Let's hope.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to be positive about it. I love how Tristan, ended the movie with where someone was asking him, "Do you think we're going to get there? Do you think we're going to be able to change this?" And his answer was, "We have to." And that can be both positive or negative depending on how you look at it. But it is like it. I choose to look at it as positive. You could say like, "Oh, it means either we do or die." But I see the positive in that. It's like humanity tends to. For good or bad, humanity tends to wait to the last minute before we really do something. We know we need to do something, and then once it becomes critical is when we all kind of like band together and get shit done. So maybe that's going to be the situation with this is once it hits, near critical situation, all of a sudden things snap to a change. But I'm hoping. I'm trying to keep the optimism there, right?
Yeah, and I mean we're just a globe full of procrastinators. I mean, it's a problem that we all have. So hopefully it will get to the point where we recognize that maybe it's time to act, and then we will.
Sure. What are my choices for next week? What do you got for me?
Okay. So I've got a movie with a good actor. I've got 3 actually. Okay. A movie with a good actor that everyone loves to make fun of.
Okay.
A movie that we've sort of made fun of, and something that we probably shouldn't be watching.
Oh, come on. Did you do this on purpose?
I was actually reading over this and I thought to myself, like, I just realized now that one of these is going to be like a compelling choice.
Yeah, it's way too tasty. I was
like,
I need to go with it. No, I need to get something we shouldn't be watching. I don't care. I am 100% picking something we shouldn't be watching.
Said that we probably shouldn't be watching doesn't mean we definitely shouldn't.
Okay, something we probably shouldn't be watching. That's still my choice. What is it?
Okay. You might hate this movie. Have you seen Akira?
No, I never have.
Oh. Or I'm sorry, I did like the Alex Trebek pronunciation.
Yeah, but no,
Akira. Have you ever seen Akira?
That's hold on. Was it redone?
No.
Okay,
no,
so
no.
It is like a early 90s, late 80s anime, right?
Yeah, I think it was like 88. Maybe?
Awesome. Dude, this is actually a great choice. Yeah, 1988. Okay.
This is the one anime movie I own is that.
And of course it's a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk action. That sounds right. Okay.
It's fucking crazy, and I still don't think I understand it, but it just doesn't seem like we've never done anime. And like when I actually saw it on my shelf, because I actually owned it on disc.
Okay.
I was like, could we? No.
Yeah, I think it's a great choice.
Like we should. And then I was like, ha ha ha, we shouldn't. And so then I was like, that's a good hint.
That is a good hint. Yeah, that was it was so I want to use the word seductive, but I don't know if that's the right term. But it did seduce me. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, I'm dead. I thought of, oh my God, I was going to give you a hint similar to that one time. It was going to be something about like a movie we definitely shouldn't do. But the suggestion was going to be that we do the PG-13 version of Pirates, the porn movie. Yeah. Where they edited the actual like, but it's like there's no way.
I've actually seen it, and it's not bad. It's pretty funny.
Is it really? Like, it's supposed to be a comedy, right? Like, it's not supposed to be a okay, yeah.
Well, it's like it's pretty funny. I mean, considering what it was. But I didn't hate it. Like we had it. I think we had it when I worked at Blockbuster.
Yeah,
when the guys told me what it was, I was like, seriously? Okay, I'm getting this.
It's the PG-13 edit of the highest budget porn movie ever made. The what? Like, excuse me?
I was like, it's just wrong. I have to see it.
But no. Akira, though, great choice. Like I've brought up to you multiple times that like people tell me I should like anime. I am nerdy enough that I should be into anime. It is a travesty that I have not yet been exposed to the type of anime that's going to like just really suck me in. So maybe this will do it. Maybe this is a good stepping stone in.
This one's fucking crazy. Like the animation, I feel like it's aged okay. The animation looks a little clunky compared to some of the newer anime out there, but
I'm sure.
I feel like you and I talked about this recently. Like I feel like the creators that do manga and anime, they come up with these off the wall creative ideas.
Yeah.
Like have you heard of My Hero Academia?
Yes. Yeah.
Like it's everyone has superpowers except for this one person, so this person's unique because they don't have superpowers. Like what an interesting idea. Or like and you've never watched any episode of One Punch Man, have you?
No, I've watched all of I forget if it was 1 or 2 seasons. No, I've watched a good amount of One Punch Man. I definitely like that.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
but I feel like the anime that I have been exposed to and that I've enjoyed is for lack of a better term like non-traditional. So it's like I want to be more into what people like, what the purists would consider anime. You know what I mean? Like One Punch Man is kind of like it is anime, but it's also like, you know, for lack of a better term, it's almost like the Dragon Ball Z, right? It's like the stepping stone in kind of like Yeah,
and Akira comes up in almost every conversation, and Gundam is one, like the old Gundam series. Like,
okay.
Actually, my girlfriend actually loves anime, and I tried to watch Gundam Wing with her, and that came out in 95, I think.
Okay.
But she said it was too old school. But Gundam, I think
there.
giant robots are definitely classic.
Oh, Stevie, is Naruto's a tearjerker. Okay, well, I do like tearjerker movies. Is Naruto like a good intro anime? Would that be like a good way to get in? Oh shit, hold on. Let's do the outro. Shit. This is gonna bring us to the end of another episode of the Metacast Movie Show. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and you've enjoyed the discussion, please hit the like button, subscribe to keep up to date, and comment below and tell us how you felt about the social dilemma. If you want to further keep up to date with the show or even join us as a guest on the future episode, you can always join our Discord. The link in the description right down below. And we'll be live next week on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to talk about Akira on twitch.tv/TylerTV. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a great week.